Do you know what I like to do when a new pope is elected? I guess elected. I like to look at some baseball cards. Topps Now already has a pope card out. I have people sending me pictures of it. Gotta love Topps Now. I'm gonna get a little nostalgic now. So, when I moved out of my parents' house and bought my first home, I had left all my cards at my parents. It was a little bit of a newer home, and they had a large basement. And at one time, I had my cards displayed in part of their basement. They had part that was finished, and a huge area that was not finished. And my mom had all kind of shelving and everything along the wall, and lots of storage. And when I lived there, there was a carpeted area with a fireplace down there, and they didn't use it, so they let me use it as a card room. They were always really good about that. And so I displayed all my cards, and I had little, boxes set up with my vintage cards and so forth. And my family was always really supportive of my hobby, even though they might not know what they were looking at. They were all sports fans, so they enjoyed coming down, and I would give tours and I would show them what I had, and it was a really fun time for me to engage in, my family. And I had I have a pretty large family. And I always remember that this was in the early 1990s. And I had really stopped buying probably in 92, probably early 92 were the last cards that I had bought at that time. And I remember buying from Kit Young. There was a woman who worked there, and I would get the catalogs, and I would buy cards sight unseen. And I'd call, and she would describe them to me and describe the condition, and she was always spot on. I have a vivid memory of buying my 1969 Mickey Mantle that way, and she described it absolutely perfectly. When grading came out, I had sent it in, and she had described it as kind of excellent, little bit off center, but in really nice shape. And when I did have it graded a 6, so it was spot on. So when I moved out and got my first house, I was running a company and I was traveling the world. I used to travel around the world and do seminars. And I was chasing women. And, so I was very busy and having fun. And I mean, I felt like James Bond going to all these other countries and chasing women. And so, I wasn't actively collecting. And my parents moved to New York for a while, Connecticut, but my mom was working in Manhattan for a while. And they're like, well, why don't you sell your house? I don't know how long we'll be gone, but why don't you sell your house, move back into our house, just pay the utilities, and you're good. So I did that for a while. And my mom ended up not staying there very long, so they moved back relatively quickly. And I went out and bought myself a motorcycle, which my mom would freak out about. And I remember they came home kind of unexpectedly, and my dad's like, "What's that in the garage? Please go move that before your mother sees it." Anyway, so I had to live at home again for a short stint while I looked for another house because I had sold mine. And I found another house, and then I was over in Africa speaking, and I was being interviewed by this woman who was, a reporter for a big magazine in my industry, and ended up marrying her. So I met my wife in West Africa, Cotonou, Benin, and a real historic place. It was where the slave trade began. It was started by the Portuguese, taken over by the English, and then, of course, America. So Uh, Most African Americans are from that area. That was where the slave trade happened. And a lot of historical stuff there. They have an eternal flame that burns 24/7 in honor. And you go to the ocean, and they have a big arch, and they have bleachers on the beach, and you sit there and you pray and pay homage. That's where the ships would come in. And this was a little area. It still had a king, and it still had the women that would carry the fruit on their heads. And the king would sit there, and the women would come around, and everybody would just honor the king. And quite the experience. But anyway, that's where I met my wife. So she lived in D.C. at the time, and I lived in Pittsburgh. So we would travel back and forth. And eventually we got engaged, and she moved up. And my parents were moving now. They were moving, and all my stuff was still there at the basement. So my mom called me, and she's like, "We're moving. You need to come get all your cards." Well, I had told my wife that I had a large collection. And I don't know, she didn't really get the impression how large it was. So I went over after work, and she had a good bit of a drive from work. I went over, I brought all my stuff over, and I put it all out in the living room, all these boxes to go through and organize and figure out what I was going to do with them. And she came home, and the look on her face was priceless. I wish we had video phones back then, camera phones, smartphones, so I could have videoed it. She walked through the door, and her jaw just dropped. And she's like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "I told you I had a large collection." And she was like, "I didn't know it was this large." Like, there were just boxes everywhere. And so it got me back into collecting. Now I'm married. I have all my cards. I'm going through and organizing them. I got the bug again. This was 2001. And so that's what I did. I got myself an eBay account, started buying cards. I started selling off my doubles to buy new ones, and I got back in a big way. So the early 2000s, 2001 through 3, and then I started traveling again for work, and I took another break until 2014. But 2001 through 3 is very nostalgic for me, even though, it wasn't when I was growing up. I was an adult at this time, but just such a nostalgic period. And they were making all kind of great cards. But, the hobby wasn't super expensive like it is now. So I was buying tons of boxes and McFarlane figures and starting lineups. And I got into a little bit of everything. And back then, I don't know, it was just so much fun. They started, it was when they had the relic cards, and the auto inserts were in a bigger way. Grading was just really taking off. And, it was all a lot of fun. And I have some things here that I got back then. I remember LeBron Mania, and watching his high school games and listening to Bill Walton just rave about this kid and how amazing, we're watching his high school games on ESPN. It was an exciting time. And you have Barry Bonds hitting all those home runs, and that one World Series, was that 2001 or 2 with the Angels in San Francisco? One of my favorite World Series of all time. I fell in love with that Angels team. No mega stars on it, but they played so well and won that World Series. Garrett Anderson and those guys. And you had K-Rod, real exciting pitcher to watch in that series. Believe he was a rookie that year. Had to get his rookie card. And so there were some great cards that came out, and there were all kind of magazines, for it. They came out with the Pit. I used to buy cards on the Pit. In fact, that's where I got my my Albert Pujols rookie card. You had Pujols and Ichiro, and then a little bit later, you had LeBron, and it was an exciting time. So I have a few things I just wanted to show you. This is one of them. And I don't know, I think this was a magazine these came out of, but they had this, Upper Deck did, this 3D of LeBron, 5x7 here, and they had this series of cards. So this, I guess, would be a LeBron rookie. These were perforated cutouts. I believe it was a Upper Deck magazine. And it's unlike me not to save the magazine, so I'm not sure. And of course, Matsui was a big deal back then, and he never really made it, but he was one of the hot rookies. Fantastic Ichiro here. That's what they look like on the back. And of course, they started producing golf cards again, and I was golfing almost every day back then. I was real into golf, and I took my love of cards and started buying all the golf stuff that I could buy, all kind of vintage golf cards, because Beckett came out with Golf Collector. And I had every magazine. I had the hockey, the basketball, the baseball, the football, the golf. I was buying boxes of Upper Deck golf cards when they came out. It's just a really fun time in the hobby. And it was, this is a fun time in the hobby, but it was more fun then because everything didn't cost you $100,000 million. And you could afford boxes. And the big thing is you got great hits out of those boxes. I pulled Jackie Robinson bat, Honus Wagner bat, Mickey Mantle jersey cards, a Mickey Mantle jersey card, a Roberto Clemente bat card. I got good pulls. And I just don't get those pulls anymore. So I just stopped buying modern. It just seems like a waste of money. I'll buy singles if I want them. And I'm real close to even being done with that. The modern cards are just it's just over the top for me. I mean, come on, we have a Pope card. Nothing against the Pope, I'm Catholic. Went to Catholic school, went to Catholic high school, Catholic college. I got these, and man, I don't know where I got them. I certainly wasn't in Minnesota. I know I didn't get them in Minnesota. But these are Burger King cards. And they came out in series. And they have a checklist here. And this is pack number 9. And they actually list who's in each pack. So somehow I ended up with a pack 9. Probably bought it on eBay. Because when Dante Culpepper first came out, I mean, he was so big and strong and athletic. I really thought he had the potential to be something great, like change that position a little bit. And he was fun to watch. So this is pack number 9 from Burger King. Robert Smith, what a great running back. Man, he had a short career. Or I think a lot more people would know his name. He was a great running back. He used to run all over my Steelers. Then they came out, Upper Deck came out with this set in 2002. And I don't know, I've always been into curating my collection. And so I would keep the pack. This is Upper Deck Superstars. And I just loved this set because it had all sports, including golf. And this was, they had numbered cards and a special pack in there. And back then they used to put these checklists in the box, which is really cool. And I would even keep those. And they had, cards like Ichiro, and Michael Vick was a big deal back then. And Albert Pujols. And of course, Tiger Woods. So you had this whole set of all kind of sports. And then what came in these packs were numbered cards. And so all these are numbered to 250 except my Ichiro, which is numbered to 25. This is when Upper Deck started making those parallel numbered cards. And I really, I thought they were really dumb at the time because a lot of times it was the exact same card, but they'd stamp a number on it in gold or whatever. Here's a Kobe. So Randy Moss. Joseph Ginla. Man, he was a good hockey player. Jerome. Did I say Joseph? Man, I do that too often. Sign of old age. Shaq. Michael Vick. And here's a Byron Nelson. But my cherished card from this set is clearly Ichiro. It was his second year. I wish I had the Pujols. I don't know if they had a Pujols numbered one. I should look into that. Pick one up. And then they had this subset, and this subset was really cool. Tiger Woods and Michael Jordan. Oh, that's the other fun thing is when Michael Jordan went to the Wizards, and they had that young team, and they had some good talent on there. And, you know, he was kind of the mentor and had them playing pretty well. They were fun to watch. It's another fun part of that era. Peyton Manning, such a great quarterback. And then they had these cool jersey cards, and they were themed by city. So because it was all sports, they would have players from that city, whether it's hockey, basketball, football, baseball. And they had some cool pairings. And so I have a whole bunch of those. So here's Mario and Brian Giles. Brian Giles was such a good player. So I have a whole stack of those. So every once in a while I'll go through this box because I don't know, this set is so nostalgic to me. And I collect all sports. And I was real into golf when it came out. And I was excited that the golfers are in there. And just a fun set to collect. I love the multi-sport sets. They don't make, you know, it's probably due to all the licensing and everything. But they just don't do that anymore. They just don't do that anymore. Not too often anyway. You'll get something like... the Goodwin and Champions once in a while, that kind of stuff. But they don't make the old mixed sets like they used to. Of course, they haven't made too many over the years. But anyway, that's what I have for you. Appreciate you hanging out and letting me tell my story and reminisce a little bit. And as always, I appreciate you hanging out with me. I gots to go.